Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to week 16 of the absolutely epic early week podcast. I just realized as I was saying that I was talking a bit faster than normal. That was subconscious. I am flying out early. I guess when you're listening to this, I'll probably be in the air for a like 6.5 hour flight across the country to Boston for the holidays. So, we are knocking out this podcast. You'll also hear some background noise when Bobby's talking because the lucky guy is hanging out down in Panama for the holidays. So let's jump right in and bring in Bobby. Bobby, how you doing, man?
Pretty good, man. Didn't play a whole lot this weekend because I've been down here with my family, and yeah, things are going really well. Sorry about the little bit of noise in the background, but it's hard to avoid when you're on a boat with a bunch of people. So, but yeah, no, things are good, man.
You're doing this on a boat? Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm on a boat right now. I got a little card, so I should be good to go for the show.
Nice. Love it. Love it. So, yeah, we're going to kind of move things along. I'm going to try to keep it under an hour tonight, see if I can't get back to packing and get Bobby back to his family and get Grant. I don't know what Grant's doing with his Monday night. So, Grant, why don't we bring you in? Go ahead and give us a Grant's rant and let us know what you're up to right now.
Oh, I'm just sitting in my house watching some football, but I realized something today when, for the fourth time this week, I lost something just while sitting on the couch and could not figure out where it was at. Being too lazy to get up and actually go find it.
Wait. Can I guess? Was it in your belly button?
You are incredibly close. I think it was in one of the rolls of my bellies. 4 times this week I've stood up and it just plopped off my stomach. And I'm starting to think that I should take a New Year's resolution for the first time in my life and actually go work out. But I've also made that mistake with Philip Rivers 4 times in the last month. And now this week it's going to change. Don't you worry. He's going to win me a GPP. But in any case, yeah, Chargers screwed me again. And my sadness is palpable.
I kind of feel like, besides you throwing in the word palpable, which is great education on our podcast, but I kind of feel like the Philip Rivers thing has to continue through the end of the season just because it's been such a strong theme on the podcast all year. So I'm assuming it'll be right back to the Philip Rivers well this week, right?
Well, we will see. We'll see how this podcast go. I may talk myself into it real quick. Wink, winky face.
Yeah, that would not surprise me at all. So we are going to dive right into this week and kind of like last week, talk about a few slightly more general things, team specific, and rather than just a one player's trends, especially this time of year where a lot of things are changing on teams and certain teams are gearing up for the playoffs, certain teams are out of it, certain teams have more to play for than others, different teams are approaching things differently. There's a lot to explore. So we're going to start out this week, and Grant, I'll start with you on this one, talking about the Chicago pass attack. And they're playing Washington this week. Washington's strong on the boundaries. I mean, they're not elite on the boundaries, but they're strong on the boundaries and really susceptible over the middle. So it's interesting. Cameron Meredith actually played in the slot this last week. Shout out to Adam Levitan. He said on our Friday night show that he thought that's where Meredith would be. So Meredith, big body in the slot obviously helps a lot. Barkley threw to him quite a bit. Barkley finally realized in the second half that Alshon Jeffrey exists and is a good receiver. So we'll have a lot of Jeffrey on Norman. That's where Jeffrey will typically line up. But yeah, so basically I just want to get a feel, Grant. I guess I skipped over Deontay Thompson too, who had like a career day, surprisingly out of nowhere. So Grant, what's your take on this Chicago passing attack against Washington? Any interest in Alshon against Norman on the outside, or more interest in Cameron Meredith over the middle? What are you thinking?
So first of all, I want the band name Big Body in the Slot. I kind of really like that, but I'm going to have to learn how to play an instrument. But it's one of those things where, so twice this season, Barkley's thrown over 40 passes. In both games, he's done very well. And there were games where I think they had to come back from behind and there were a bit of shootouts. If they're going to be in a shootout, which I think they will, going up against Kirk Cousins, is it in Washington? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Sorry, I was on mute there when you were asking that. I had to navigate back. It's
in Chicago. All right. So
Chicago.
It's kind of a little bit weather dependent, although this last weekend, I guess, really didn't matter what the weather was for them to play. But I have less interest in Jeffrey going up against Norman, but I have a decent amount of interest in Meredith just because he could see a whole lot of targets. If they're going to be passing the ball a bunch, which it's looking like more and more they're going to. The one game Barkley played in where they didn't pass the ball over 30 times was against San Francisco, and that was obviously San Francisco and in just god-awful weather. So yeah, I think that he's in play, and Barkley could be in play. I think he's still 5K right now.
I want to jump in on that too, and Bobby, get your take on how you usually handle weather. I don't know how much we talked about this last week. No, we didn't talk about it because that we didn't really. We all liked that game until kind of the forecast once we started looking at it afterward. But Bobby, how do you usually handle weather as far as like wind and cold and all that stuff?
I mean, obviously it depends. Like if the wind's swirling really bad, obviously you don't want to take the passing game as much. The snow can go either way depending on how heavy it is. I generally like to take running backs in the snow on certain teams where the quarterbacks are maybe not so familiar or in the cold. But yeah, I mean, it really depends for me. Did you want me to answer about the Bears passing attack in general?
Yeah. Go ahead and jump in on that too. I was just going to say on the weather thing, I was a little bummed this last weekend because I got I really liked that Chicago Green Bay game. I wasn't as concerned about it, the weather, as everyone else was, but once the line dropped from an open of 44 down to 38.5 for the over/under, it was like, man, that there's a lot of concern from a lot of smart people, and I had no significant part of that game, and really liked that. I guess I did have Ty Montgomery, but that's focusing on the running back, not the passing game. So it's just interesting. Typically, I'm not as concerned about 15-mile-an-hour winds as everybody else is. So was interesting.
Yeah. No. Well, at least you got the right guy. I didn't have the foresight and wisdom to take Montgomery like most of you geniuses did. But no, I think that the Bears passing attack is in play. I don't think that I'm going to take much of Jeffrey. I sort of agree with Grant. I think that I'll take some shots with Meredith. I don't really know if I'll go more like for Thompson just because I'd like to go contrary, and I don't know if that was sort of an outlier. But I'm not overwhelmed with the Bears passing attack, but I do think that I'll have some shares of Meredith, and I probably will end for me around there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this passing attack is legit. Grant brought up, what Barkley's done when he's passed a bunch, and I mean, I think that like Barkley does. I mean, okay, there were the 3 interceptions this last week that has to be mentioned. One of them was not his fault; the other 2 were. But I mean, like Barkley doesn't look bad. So I think it's an interesting spot to look for sure.
It is. The one thing about it, though, is I'll run all over them. I feel like, Washington's run defense is really bad. So I actually would be a little bit more worried in this game because they faced a couple better run defenses. I know that Green Bay is obviously not they've had some horrible, horrible games against the run, but they've had horrible games against the passing game over the last few weeks as well. So I think that this week, Washington, I really don't believe in their run D, and I think that Howard and the Bears' run game could actually dominate this game too. So that's another reason why.
Yeah, and also to bring it like on along those lines, I'm guessing that by the time we hit Sunday, Howard will probably become decently popular. If that happens, that might pull people off the pass game a bit, which could make Meredith and even Alshon more contrarian than they would have been. Something to think about, keep an eye on this week is where the chatter is, because it's a great, phenomenal matchup for Jordan Howard as well. It's a good matchup for Cameron Meredith over the middle. Washington has just been destroyed by tight ends this year, and the Bears don't have a truly viable tight end at the moment. But you put Meredith over the middle, and he can fill, a lot of those same route running roles. So a lot to like in that spot, and I'll definitely have some ownership of the Bears, and it'll just be interesting to see how the week shakes out in that sense. The next one that we want to talk about is a little more player specific, and that is Ty Montgomery. So I cannot take full credit for playing Montgomery. It was actually funny. He was, 17, 18% owned in like the Millie Maker. And then there was a 80 entry, $5,300 tournament this weekend. And he was almost 40% owned in there. So ownership doubled once you get up to the super high buy-in levels. I really didn't love Montgomery. And then there were a lot of really smart people who liked him a lot. I know Sunday morning, Levitan said that he had Montgomery in cash. Silva was saying he was using Montgomery on every team, and kind of forced me to take a closer look. And maybe like an hour before lock, I kind of begrudgingly moved off Adam Thielen onto Ty Montgomery. Thielen had 0 catches and got injured, so that helped quite a bit. But this week, Montgomery goes up against Minnesota, and we've seen these spiked usage weeks before for Montgomery. And Minnesota is an average run defense, not great, not bad, tremendous against the pass. But, obviously they can defend the pass without selling out to defend the pass. So my question is, and Grant, I'm going to get you back in here on this one. Ty Montgomery, are you interested in going there against Minnesota, or do you think that his huge game, obviously he's good, but was his huge game more a product of all the injuries and suspensions on the Bears defense, and is he going to be over-owned for what you expect from him this week?
You have to wait and see what his ownership is, but Minnesota's given up some pretty big games to running backs so far this season. I know Howard went nuts on him when they played, I think that might have been – no, that wasn't Barkley's first game. That was when Cutler was in. But they just gave up a 100-yard game to Frank Gore, who I think this is the second time the Colts have had a 100-yard rusher since the 1949 gold rush in California. I think it's in 49 just because my guess was the 49ers. I'm not great at history, but I'm going to have a decent amount of interest in him, and I have to see where his ownership's going to be. But I hate giving credit to Siege ever for any reason, but he kind of mentioned a good idea where you can get 4 running backs in a lineup because he's wide receiver eligible in DK. I think he still is. I'm assuming.
Actually, not anymore. Nope.
Just
son of a beasting. All right, I'm out completely, guys. See ya. I'm done for this week.
No, I literally just saw that myself. So that makes a difference. But he's also 5,900, and so the thing with Minnesota, they're 14th in DVOA against the run. They're number 2 against the pass. So it's not like a tremendous matchup. But yeah, they do funnel action toward the ground. We know that the Packers kind of throw the ball no matter what, but 16 carries last week and obviously did a tremendous job. I don't know, Bobby, what's your take on this spot with Montgomery?
I feel like there's probably other places I'd go. I actually would be more interested if he was wide receiver. I like the price. I do think that Minnesota can be exploited. They tend to get a little over aggressive with the pass rush at times, and especially against a team like Green Bay, who you expect to throw a lot, that can be exploited a little bit. But I don't think I'm going to have a ton of shares of him just because I do like other running backs a little bit better. So I think that he's I would say a play moving forward, but there's not really much moving forward anymore. But he's not my guy this week. At least as of now, I might change as things pick up a little later in the week.
Real quick, who are a couple of the guys that are standing out to you at running back?
I like Howard a lot. He's definitely high on my list, and I like Lat Murray. I'm going to keep taking running backs against Indianapolis until I die. I am probably going to take shots with Todd Gurley. I know that if there was ever a spot to try and take him, it would be this week. I know he's more expensive. I just feel like the upside is still there. I know that their line sucks and everything's different. It's the Niners. They're going to get the pace of play is going to be up. I think this is going to be, a sort of I don't want to say a breakout game because obviously he's had massive games in his career. He just hasn't been doing much this year. But I do think that Gurley's an interesting play. I think that Hyde's a good play actually against the Rams in the same game. I'm just naming some guys off the top of my head because I haven't, looked at everything into it. I think that you could make an argument Martin in a good spot at New Orleans. There's a lot of guys who I feel like are in play, but I haven't. I've just started on my research, so I just know that I've got noted that I like a lot of running backs. I'm going to play in the flex this week as well, at least as of right now. That's what I've been doing all year on DraftKings, pretty much, and I think it's the way to go this week as well.
Right on. Yeah, the couple notes on that. One, the running back in the flex. It's funny because last year, that's something I maybe did once all season. And obviously I'm saying on my main team, but yeah, like last year it was totally different where on a PPR site you want those wide receivers and most of the NFL was still using committee backfield. And now all of a sudden the entire NFL has shifted to workhorse backs again. There's guys getting targets and carries. You can get a 5 to 7 target guy or, Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson, 10 target guy, plus their carries, they just become so much more valuable on a PPR site. Other thing was a caution on Latavius Murray. I know you're starting your week, but this is just a sad tale from me. I was on Latavius Murray this last week, and the the Raiders out of nowhere went back to their three-headed backfield. Once again, basically everybody's like all three guys split carries almost down the middle. There was no forewarning about that, and I don't know if it was just a 1 week thing, but yeah, Murray had, I think, 14 touches, had his worst game since week 4. So something to keep an eye on. I'd be interested to find out what beat writers are saying about it. I don't know why, but yeah, I mean, it was a complete mess of a situation. Yeah, 13 carries, 1 target this last week. Great spot against Indianapolis. Maybe we can get some clarity from beat writers and jump back on Latavius Murray if they're going to go back to him for 20 touches again. The next one I'm going to start with, and Bobby, I'll go back to you on this one, and that is the Patriots. So it was an interesting week for me. I said I used Montgomery. I also used LeGarrette Blount and Latavius Murray on that same team, which minimized the damage I was able to do in tournaments this week. So the Patriots, the obvious thing for them to do is attack the Jets through the air. This last week, I hypothesized on my Friday night show that the Patriots would actually start the game against the Broncos, because the obvious thing against the Broncos is attack on the ground, right? I mean, the number 1 pass defense, but a bottom 10 run defense. And I hypothesized that the Patriots would start out by actually spreading out the field and running between the tackles with James White or Dion Lewis. I thought that's how the Patriots would play the first quarter and then shift to Blount. The Patriots ended up playing the whole game like that, which really hurt my Blount play. And they basically did that because, Wade Phillips knows, they're going to attack us on the ground. So they try to do something different. So basically, all that to say, the question with this Patriots attack is they want to do something different from what their opponent expects, which could mean that Brady doesn't come out and throw it 45 times against this horrendous Jets pass defense. So, Bobby, my question to you here is, what's your level of interest on the Patriots against the Jets? I mean, it's the number 1 pass offense against what might be the number 32 pass defense. It's a huge mismatch. But any concerns that the Patriots will take their foot off the gas with a big lead, or that they'll try to trick the Jets by running Blount between the tackles? What's your level of interest here?
Yeah, I do have some concerns. I'm also really concerned because I actually watched the Jets game on Saturday, and don't ask me. Well, I guess the reason why I was at a casino and there was nothing else to do while we were waiting for the craps table to open. So they opened it a little late around here. So I was watching the game and it was horrible. It was so hard to watch their offense. I don't know what the Jets offense is going to be able to do. I feel like this game is going to be in hand in like the second quarter. I don't know. I could see it going a bunch of different ways. And like you said, they just try and do the opposite of what their opponent thinks they're going to do, the Patriots. And I don't know. It's hard for me to want to target a game like this just because I'm worried about play. I don't even know how they're even going to compete in this game. And I'm certainly not going to take any running backs on the Patriots because even though the Jets defense has been awful, it's not their run defense for the most part, although they've given up some huge games. Last week wasn't one of them. They did a pretty good job on Ajayi. I think that I think I'll have some shares of I don't know, maybe some shares of Brady, but I don't really know what else I really want to target from that game, even though it's such an obviously great spot. So I'm gonna probably have to look at that one a little bit further as the week plays out, but it's hard for me to know what to do because I really feel like this could be like one of those games that's like 35-0 at halftime. I mean, it's just I don't know how the Jets hang in there.
And the touchdowns could be scored by like a backup tight end and a fullback or Chris Hogan. And that's the other thing. Chris Hogan could have 3 catches and 2 touchdowns, but not even enough yards to be worth it. And Edelman could pick up 95 yards receiving and no touchdown. Like they have so many weapons that it's kind of tough to pinpoint who even to use. Grant, what's your take on this Patriots passing game this week against the Jets?
Yeah, you guys are right. It's a tough one. I mean, the spread's at this point right now, 16.5, which I haven't seen a spread that high in a long time. But it's one of those spots where I think Brady's absolutely in play. I think Blunt's in play because he's going to get his workload regardless of the run D. And if they are ahead, they'll be running it with Blount. But yeah, I worry about the blowout. I don't know if there's any real safety here, but I believe that most guys on this offense have a tournament flyer tagged to him because Edelman can go get 10 catches in the first half and go for 140 yards. Hogan can go off for a huge play. Bennett can end up with 2 touchdowns. Blount could end up with 2 touchdowns. Any one of these things could happen. So there's zero safety in anyone but probably Brady. And that's even not the safest thing in the world, because if they're blowing him out, it could have been done by Blunt, and he could not really get much work in the second half because they're ahead by so much. Because, yeah, Bobby's right. They look just terrible. One guy that I really do like, and it depends on Forte's health, is going to be Blau. End of sentence.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely going to be some plays on that Jet side. If the Patriots have a huge lead, even – assuming Bryce Petty gets cleared to play again this week, which is looking positive today for that. He's looking to Robbie Anderson so much that, of course, I think didn't Brandon Marshall have like 9 targets this last week or 11 targets, something absurd like that, and caught like 2 passes.
Yeah, but I think
11 targets.
With Fitzgerald, I think.
But yeah, so I think that there's definitely stuff on both sides. One thing I will say on the Patriots side is they've secured a first-round bye, and Belichick has almost never rested players in Week 17. There's been a couple of strategic, rests, such as Gronk when he's been banged up. But they play Week 17, and there's a chance. And I think it's just because we saw so many years with Manning and Dungy. What happened when they rested guys Week 16, 17? They just weren't sharp when they came back, after a 2-week layoff after that. So I do think that there's a chance that the Patriots, like Grant, like you said, in tournaments, especially where you don't know the floor on these guys, but I think the ceiling has a potential to be immense, because the Patriots, there's I wouldn't say an 80% chance, but I'd say it's 50-50 that the Patriots might keep their foot on the gas through the fourth quarter and just, keep playing. It's like your boy Pete Carroll said, Grant, on that fake punt. What did he say? Something like, if you're not competing, then you're something, some dumb thing that he said to justify the fake punt.
Do not insult him.
Up by 21 points. But yeah, I mean, that's the way these guys' minds work, is it's like the year after Spygate when the Patriots were still throwing and deep into the fourth quarter. We could see something like that just because they know that they have a couple weeks left to kind of get everything shaped up before the playoffs. So that is something to think about. So yeah, I think we pretty much cleared up that one. This next one is going to be a little tougher to unravel. And that is a Tampa Bay defense that and they didn't look as great the other night, but also the Cowboys pretty much rode Ezekiel Elliott. Tampa Bay defenses looked really good. The Saints offense had looked genuinely bad for a couple weeks. And then the Saints go and just, storm the castle against the Cardinals and destroyed that defense. And granted, the the Cardinals have some injuries in the secondary outside Patrick Peterson. The Saints were able to exploit that. But I expect after the Bucs defense kind of had a down game on primetime and after the Saints went off, I expect that we're going to see ownership swing heavily toward the Saints. So, Bobby, I'll start with you on this one. What's your take on how to approach this New Orleans-Tampa game? It's in the Superdome. We know ownership will probably – we can assume at this point, we'll have a better idea later in the week, but we can assume pretty safely that ownership is going to be high. But it's also, a good spot. Breeze in the Superdome is always a good spot. So what's your take on this situation?
I'm a big fan of actually targeting this game. I know it's going to be popular. It's going to be really hard to keep me off of what they did to Arizona was just absolutely absurd. I also think you can get creative in terms of who you use in their passing game. Not that creative. I mean, you could use Snead, and I don't mean to get creative. I just think everybody's going to go to Cooks, and I think that Snead's actually the better play this week. But I think the Tampa Bay defense, actually, I've been surprised at how much better they've been playing. But I still think that it's New Orleans at home in the Superdome, and I've been saying the Steelers are like playing Coors all year, but really New Orleans is like that at home. And I know they've had a couple bad weeks. But unlike them, because usually they just play 8 great games at home offensively, or at least 7. And I think this is a game that I'm very interested in targeting on both sides of the ball. I think you can take pretty much anybody you want everybody who plays is a viable option to me in this game. Everybody who plays and who has ever caught a pass or ran the ball. I just think it's a really good game, and it's a really good game to target. So I do think their defense has been better. I mean, I don't feel like it's going to scare me away at all. I'm not really afraid of any defense against New Orleans at home at this point.
Yeah, one note on that too. You're talking about Snead. and this will change after week 15 is factored in. But coming into week 15, Tampa Bay's DVOA against the pass, outside the numbers, they were ranked third on the left side of the field, eighth on the right side of the field, but 18th across the middle. So that's obviously where Snead primarily operates. So he does have the best matchup against a defense that funnels action toward the middle of the field. Grant, what are your thoughts on Tampa Bay, on this Tampa Bay New Orleans game, and primarily on the New Orleans offense?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to be said. You guys hit the nail on the head. It's New Orleans at home. The over-under is 52.5. It's going to be a shootout. I think every single person is in play, and Thomas, I think, is going to be a great play because people are going to be off him a little bit. I think he's going to be healthy by the time this weekend rolls around. You have to look into his health a little bit more, but people forget that he's probably the number one wide receiver in that offense, and Cooks just happened to go off this last week because he got a much better matchup. And so everyone's in play. We don't really even need to talk about this much. Everyone's in play on both sides of the ball. Just do it. Don't care about the ownership. It's
crazy, Cooks too, because I mean, you look at his career game logs. He always explodes at the Superdome and almost never does anything on the road. So that was insane as well. It's what else is crazy is I've had this knack for targeting guys in really good spots when they have their worst week of the season. This year, I took Cooks the week that he had 0 points, and then he goes off 2-3 weeks later for this. But yeah, like you guys said, I think everything's in play here. I think that there are other spots that are also going to be in play. I mean, if you look at projected totals, the Patriots are going to have a higher Vegas implied team total. We also have a similarly high over-under in Indianapolis and Oakland. So that's not the only spot to target. And like we said, ownership's going to go there. Atlanta and Carolina is also a similarly high over-under. So we know where ownership is going to go, but like you guys said, it's still a phenomenal spot. Now the last one, I'm going to give my thoughts on this and then see what you guys think. And that is Tom Savage and the Houston passing attack against Cincinnati. So Tom Savage, I don't know if you guys got to catch any of that game. I don't know why you would be watching a Texans game in the first place, but he looked good. Tom Savage has looked good in the preseason in his career. He, had an 8-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio in the preseason. And this week they're taking on a Cincinnati pass defense that is beatable. Their DVOA ranking against the pass is 17th, middle of the road. One thing Cincinnati's been good at is scheming away one weapon. So that concerns me a bit with DeAndre Hopkins. Cincinnati plays a lot of zone coverage. They can take away the part of the field they want to take away. But I think Savage himself is in play this week. We've seen what Bill O'Brien has done with quarterbacks in the past. We saw it with Christian Hackenberg at Penn State. We saw it with Matt Castle. He and Josh McDaniels were the coaches when Castle had his big season on the Patriots. We saw him make Brian Hoyer look like a great quarterback. Brandon Weeden looks serviceable in this system. I mean, Brock Osweiler is bad. So, Grant, I'll start with you on this one. What's your level of interest in DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, Tom Savage? How much of a difference do you think this makes this week against Cincinnati?
So Hopkins, I think, has my highest level of interest. I mean, he's 5,200, and with a quarterback that's probably about as serviceable as Brian Hoyer maybe was last year. Look at what Brian Hoyer did with him at 5,200. That's just a ridiculous price with the type of upside that he gives you. And with a guy on the other side of the field that can actually do something. Fuller's only 3,900. And this Cincinnati defense, you're right, is not great. Is not the same defense it was last year. I have a good amount of interest in both of them. And the Vegas over-under is 44. And it's projected to be a close game. So you can expect about 3 touchdowns out of them probably. Somewhere in that range, 2 to 3 touchdowns. So where are those going to go? They're not that likely to go to Lamar Miller. They're more likely, I think, to go to the passing game. And I have a lot of interest in all these guys. Savage, I don't have as much interest because I think there are other quarterbacks that are going to be much better plays at the low price range because there's 2 to 3 minimum price quarterbacks that are in play this week. And so I don't think you really need to go to Savage where you can go elsewhere.
Yeah, good point on that with there being other quarterbacks available. Also just, thought about the fact that A.J. Green is expected to come back this week, which enhances the likelihood that Cincinnati will be able to make an impact against the Houston defense, which would increase the likelihood of Houston having to take to the air. So, Bobby, let me turn it over to you. What's your take on this Houston passing game? What's your level of interest in Nuke and Fuller this week?
Yeah, I don't know how I'm not going to be all over Hopkins at 5,200. He had 17 targets. It's a great spot. I understand. Okay, Osweiler, in my opinion, is the worst quarterback in the NFL. I've been saying this all year, and he's impossible for me to watch. I'm with Savage out there. I think that it makes me like Hopkins a lot better. I think that Fuller's in play. I'm just going to probably limit it to those guys. I don't know if I want to use Savage because I agree with Grant that there are probably other guys who are better options. And I think quarterback's a spot where I like a little bit of safety. I treat it a little bit like pitching unless I think there's a low end guy who's got huge upside. And usually that would involve running the ball from the quarterback spot, which I don't think Savage does, although I don't know his game all that well because I wasn't able to watch that game and haven't really seen him play before. In fact, I'd heard his name once or twice, but I really didn't know much about him. So I'm definitely interested in the passing game. I think it's a good spot against Cincinnati. I do think that there's a good chance Cincinnati will be able to put up points, especially with Green coming back. And I actually think that they're in a really, they're in a good spot. I just don't know that I want to actually take the quarterback. I'm more interested in just taking one of the two big receivers probably and split it in different lineups and splitting them all over the place.
Yeah, and Grant, I think you made a great point too about that Savage can't. People don't. Savage is an unknown entity basically, but he's not worse than Brian Hoyer, and honestly, he's probably better. I mean, so he was kind of Bill O'Brien's hand-picked selection, 4th-round pick in his first draft, and he's been developing him ever since. And, obviously the reason Osweiler was starting all year was because of that contract. But, Savage is clearly a better quarterback than Osweiler and probably at least as good as Hoyer. And if Nuke were getting 17 targets from Hoyer last year, he would have, had been priced at 8,800 or 9K and would have had 60% ownership still. So that's an exaggeration, but you get the point. So yeah, at 5,200, the play is phenomenal. I wish it were more of a funnel defense that they were playing so that we were more guaranteed passing work, but I think that they'll still get their looks. And it's kind of like the Broncos in that I guess they've added in, the tight end position in Houston, but typically where the targets are going to go. Both those guys are going to get their targets, so there's a lot to like there. Which brings us to Love at First Sight, where each of us bring up a game that stands out to us at the start of the week. And there are several good options to choose from this week. So, Grant, I'm going to throw it over to you. I assume you have a Love at First Sight story for us to keep the people happy. And then, what's your game you're eyeing this week?
So we've all had those women in our life. I believe they are called chicken teases, if I'm going to censor this a little bit. But those women in your life that always, you think you got a chance.
Chicken teases.
Well, what's another word for a chicken?
No, I think it's actually a rooster, isn't it? But either way, it's still a great phrase, though. I love it.
So anyways, chicken teases. These women, there was 2 of them, and they happened to be sisters. Always went after them my entire life. Always wanted to get it. Always wanted to get that. They were responsible for more cold showers for me than that 1 month I had my hot water shut off. Thank you, City of LA. But in any case, never got them. Now they're married. Now I never want to speak to them because that was just a waste of my life. But always go in for it, get so excited, and then let down. And what are the 2 situations that's been for me this year? People playing the Chargers / the Chargers and Cleveland quarterbacks. So you could probably figure out what I'm going to say. San Diego at Cleveland. I don't know why, but this has a 43 over-under right now. Almost every single game this entire year has been high. San Diego's still the 4th, I think, highest scoring team in the entire league. Cleveland's going up against the San Diego defense that has allowed probably the 4th most points in the league. Cleveland is the worst defense in the league. This is the best matchup San Diego has all year and probably that Cleveland has all year. RG3's minimum price, Corey Coleman's 3,900. Inman's price is, I think, decreased a bit. Maybe not. Maybe it's about the same. Tyrell Williams' price is decreased. Benjamin's looking like he's back in the offense. Hunter Henry's a viable tight end. Every single part of this game is beautiful. And if you don't like Cleveland and you're a smart man for doing that, play San Diego's defense. It's defense against Cleveland that leads the league in takeaways. It's just a beautiful, beautiful sight that's going to be happening here. play everyone everywhere. It's a great pivot off the New Orleans games because everyone's going to be on that. And this game has just as many solid options. Go, JM. You're up.
I do agree with you on the San Diego side. If Melvin Gordon doesn't come back, Farrow did not look good. Thankfully, I avoided him this last weekend. But yeah, I mean, I think that they could obviously be going through the air. I mean, Farrow might look better too with another week of prep. I don't know on the ground against Cleveland, but yeah, I mean, you could definitely attack through the air against Cleveland. You can attack on the ground against Cleveland. There's a lot to like on the San Diego side. I can't imagine going anywhere near the Cleveland offense because RG3 just looks horrendous, and San Diego is great on the perimeter. But that's my take. Bobby, what are your takes on that game, and then what's a game that's standing out to you to start the week?
I love that Grant always wants to stack the game with that he takes the defense from. I really do like San Diego's defense this week, so I'm with that part of the game. I'm not really all that interested in the game other than that because I think there's some really good games to target. The obvious one I'm going to skip and I'll leave it for you if you want it. I'm going to go for Indy Oakland. I think it's a good game, big game for both teams. It's a great spot. I love Luck this week. I'm very interested in the Raiders running game once I find out more about what it's going to be this weekend, if I can find out more of what it's going to be. But if not, I think their passing game is very viable also. I expect this to be really high scoring. I was really impressed with what Indianapolis was able to do Sunday against Minnesota at Minnesota. And I think that it's going to be their game to, it's a big game for both teams and targeting the most. I haven't actually seen the over-under. It's kind of hard to get my internet.
It's 53 or 53 and a half, something like that.
Yeah, I'd imagine it would be something crazy like that. So that's probably the game I'll have the most exposure to, along with the New Orleans game. It's going to be close, but I feel like everybody's extremely viable in the game. There's not really a whole lot that I need to say about it. It's just a good spot. And what Andrew Luck is starting to – that offense, when it starts to click, I mean – they're dangerous, man. They can put up a ton of points in a hurry. We know what the Raiders can do when they need to score points, even though they let a lot of people down last week. Maybe that'll keep some people off of them. But I think everybody's viable in this game, and I'm not really worried about any of the individual matchups, even though there are some decent, reasonably tough individual matchups out there. I actually don't know about Davis this week. What's happening with him? I'm actually a little bit out of the loop on that. But anyway, I think it's a great game to target. I wish I had a little bit more information. I wish I was a little bit more prepared with my game of the week. But that's definitely the one that stood out to me the most. I've made a couple lineups I've in Grant talk, and they are pretty heavily involved. This game is pretty heavily involved.
You gotta love Roberts, don't you? You gotta love Roberts.
I guess you got to love Seth Roberts, Grant's man. But yeah, no, I love that game all over the place, and that's all I got.
Yeah, Seth Roberts with his 2 catches for 27 yards last week. Grant, what's your take on this game?
I was kidding, by the way, before about loving Seth Roberts. Just FYI.
Yeah, FYI, I love Seth Roberts.
I'm sure listeners got that.
Yeah, no, it's a great game to go to. I mean, you're right, Murray. I don't think that. Man, something's wrong with my spreadsheet. I really fudged the pooch up. I don't know what the over/under in that game is. I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention. I was singing Rick Astley's most famous song in my head most of the time. I got distracted. I like a lot of guys on the side. I like Hilton in this game. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think that Carr's in play. I think that Luck's in play. I think that you can go with Murray going up against that D. I think that even this is a week where there's not the best options at the low price side for running backs. And I think that you can go with Frank Gore, even though it makes me vomit in my mouth every time I do. But I have a bad gag reflex, so that's fine. But yeah, no, I really like this game. Yeah,
I think this is actually, Bobby, the game that I was going to take. But the one thing I really like, and I think people don't realize, it's not that it'll matter because T.Y. Hilton is going to be popular regardless, but the Raiders are actually really strong on the outside, which makes sense because Amerson and Smith are 2 of the best corners in football. But their DVOA rankings outside the numbers is top 10 or at least top 11. And they're dead last DVOA over the middle. And T.Y. Hilton's playing 70% of his snaps in the slot this year. And, as a shorter, faster receiver, which is exactly the type of receiver that gives this team problems anyway. I wish it were in Indianapolis because much like Brandon Cooks, T.Y. Hilton usually pops off when he's playing at home, specifically when he's playing in a dome, which we saw again last week against Minnesota. And so it would be nicer if this game were indoors. T.Y. Hilton's indoor-outdoor splits are extreme. I don't have them in front of me, but still, it's a great spot for Hilton, especially if Moncrief is out again. The targets are going to be there. I'll be interested to see what we can glean from Oakland beat writers, because that Latavius Murray thing was pretty crazy. He had 13 carries, like I said, this last week. So if that's going to happen again, that's a tough place to go. I definitely like Frank Gore as well. And I guess I should expound on that because that's a crazy thing to say, seemingly. But yeah, Frank Gore, I say this every week in my game-by-game breakdown, is he's one of the highest floor players in the league. You look at his weekly scores, almost every week, he's up around 13, 14 points. But he has one of the lowest ceilings. So I don't expect a 25-point game, but he should be serviceable this week. So
at his price, he still can get 2 touchdowns. And by the way, T.Y. Hilton's indoor-outdoor splits this year, he's significantly better outdoors.
Is that so?
Yeah, 500 yards indoors, 553 touchdowns, 49 catches, 17 more than indoors, and 150 more yards indoors or outdoors than indoors.
And he's presumably played more games outdoors as well. So, indoors as well. So that is very interesting. And yeah, I'll have to dig into that a little bit more later in the week because I remember this from last year, just it being pretty sizable throughout his career. But which makes sense.
Chicago had a lot to do with it. He had 170 yards in both on the road. So
yeah, the point is, if you can see that he can do it on the road, then that's good enough for me. Obviously his speed plays better on turf than on grass, which is the big thing with these indoor-outdoor splits. But yeah, so as somebody like Cooks or T.Y. Hilton, it makes sense for them to do better, playing indoors. But that doesn't mean they can't do well in an outdoor road game. So I am going to go ahead and say the Atlanta-Carolina game, primarily because I want to get your guys' take on Julio Jones, who's looking likely to come back this week. They're saying they want to test him out at full speed on Wednesday. They've kind of had back-to-back games that they could win without Julio Jones. The Rams and 49ers, they've been very cautious with his toe injury. I would expect him to come back in a tough game against Carolina. We remember what he did last time against Carolina. I believe it was 300 receiving yards. Obviously, Carolina is not going to let that happen again. But Kyle Shanahan does a great job scheming his players into a position to succeed, which means he's not going to put Julio on James Bradbury's side. He's going to put him away from Bradbury. He's going to run him on routes that'll get him open. Carolina still has a great run defense, still funnels toward the pass. So I don't know. Grant, what do you think Julio's ownership is going to be like this week? Do you think that people are going to jump back on that, or do you think that they'll take a wait-and-see approach with his injury? What's your level of interest?
It all depends on what news comes. Yeah, it all depends on what news comes out this week regarding him. If they say that he's 100% ready to go, then I think that his ownership will be high. Gabriel his price is $6,200 now in that game. So if Julio goes, then that's probably not going to help. I haven't looked up Sanu's price, but I think it is. Yeah, it's $5,100. There's not really a whole lot of value in there in the Atlanta passing attack. So if people are going to want to get some exposure to this, I think, and it's probably going to be Julio, I guess.
Yeah, but I just saw his price too. It's $8,100, which is let's be honest, that's absurdly low. Yeah. So let's say, and Bobby, let's get you in here on this. Let's say Julio is projected. We're getting close to Sunday, and Julio is projected at 35% ownership. You have interest in him if they're saying that he's healthy?
Not at 35% ownership, I don't. I would be much more interested at around 20%, but I don't think at 35% I'm going to take anybody coming back from an injury. I don't know. It's hard for me to get it's hard for me to get my head around that, even though if they say he's healthy and I find out he has low ownership, I'll have him in almost all of my almost all my lineups. But if it's going to be 35%, there's just no way I'm going to go there. I just don't feel I feel like there are other guys you can go to. 8,100 is a really discounted price and it's a great spot, but 35% is really, really high. So I just think that there's other guys who I really like this week who are a little bit sneakier. I think that I would prefer, but I think it is a good game target in general. And I will take him. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say I'm going to have no shares of him if he's 35% owned, but I'm just not going to have him that much. I'm not going to put him
you'll
in the
be
majority
thinner ownership than the field has.
Yeah, definitely.
Grant, what do you think? If he's 30 to 35%, would you still be on him at 8,100?
No, I'd rather go with some guy with the same exact ceiling, if not higher, with Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Odell Beckham. They're all just a few hundred more. I mean, the pricing this week is really different at the top. David Johnson, Bell, they're facing tough matchups, so their price has gone down drastically, and I don't know if it really limits their ceiling quite as much as everyone thinks it does, going up against those tough defenses, because they catch so much out of the backfield. And all the other top wide receivers, Beckham, Evans, Brown, they haven't done well lately, but they still have the same exact ceiling. It's just so many people are going to be off of them. And for some reason, if they are on Julio so much, then why would I go there when I can go the other guys for bigger field GPPs? I mean, if it was a small one, I might have some interest in him, but at that ownership, I wouldn't have a share of them, I don't think.
Yeah, it's an interesting week in the way that pricing breaks down, and that we've gone kind of a couple months of, high price running back being the way that everybody's going. But now this week, Le'Veon Bell's not on the main slate. David Johnson is playing Seattle. LaShawn McCoy is playing Miami, which is fine. But nobody cares that LaShawn McCoy is capped at 21 touches, so he'll still see ownership. But we have a lot of good values at running back, and nothing just that jumps off the page at wide receiver. I mean, at the high end running backs, whereas there are some high priced wide receivers: Mike Evans against New Orleans, Julio Jones against Carolina, T.Y. Hilton against Oakland. I mean, all of those are really good spots that I think we'll see a lot of, people paying up for too expensive wide receivers. The reason we'll see a lot of it is because it is probably the optimal approach. But if it's something like, a 40% chance that a different approach is better, but you're getting much lower ownership, then that can be a great way to go in tournaments. In cash games, it obviously makes a ton of sense to go Julio at 8,100. I'll still have to look into it. Like, I could genuinely, if you could fit Evans, Julio, and Hilton on a team and still have a good team around it, which I haven't messed around enough to know if that's viable. But I wouldn't mind Julio at 30% ownership, honestly, because I have enough trust in Kyle Shanahan to scheme him open. So looking at DVOA numbers, which are full season, they don't take into account recent performance. So even with how poorly Carolina started, they rank 11th in DVOA over the middle, 12th on the right side of the field. But they rank 30th on the left side. So it would make sense that Kyle Shanahan is going to get Julio on the left side of the field and let him do work. So yeah, it's interesting. If ownership's going to get that high, yeah, like you guys said, I mean, there are other viable options. Hilton and Evans are also tremendous options. So a lot to think about there. And yeah, pricing is weird this week. And I don't know if it's because they probably ran a lot of satellites to that $1,500 main event. I believe it's $1,500 buy-in, $1 million to first. And so there's probably a lot of people in that, who won satellites, won tickets, and maybe they're doing that to, I don't know, like pricing's looser this week is what I'm saying. And maybe that's why, I don't know. But yeah, so that brings us to, I guess I'll let that bring us to the part that I don't want to get to. We'll jump in now with some tweets and punishment. And I kind of get the sense.
We still got the
we got to get to the values, but and we won't get to our bold calls yet. But I want to get to my punishment and get this out of the way. I kind of feel like, Grant, I was thinking about this evening. So you're the craziest of our group. I think you're proud to say that. And you were the one who came up with this idea. And I feel like the reason you came up with this idea for the tweets and all this had nothing to do with promoting the show, and only had to do with the fact that you're the craziest and would therefore make the craziest guesses and would therefore end up being right on your bold calls. And we would get stuck with all of your tweets. So
I was expecting to lose almost every single time this season. I lost the first, two, and then I've lost one since.
You said Seth Roberts as the top cheap point per dollar play. He had, 2 catches for 20 yards, and you beat me because mine was so bad.
I keep waiting for you guys to smoke me. I've made ridiculous calls every single week.
Ridiculous calls. I took Allen Robinson and almost immediately regretted it. I don't think I had Allen Robinson on a single of my, 60 or 70 plus teams that I built last week messing around with things. So there you go. Allen Robinson got me less than 1 point per dollar. So Grant, what do I have for options for tweets this week?
So I'm not sure how mean these are because I still can't tell how ridiculous of a person I am. But I've broken it down into 3 segments. Songs from the 80s and 90s, things that'll make you hate yourself, and Disney again. So let's start off. 80s and 90s. When it comes to getting whooped at DFS, at Bobby Fi and at Grant Niefer, I'm never going to give you up. I'm never going to let you down. Hashtag got my Astley handed to me. Number 2, I want
That's
Grant.
a winner. That's a winner. That's a winner. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
That is a good
I
one.
don't like that one.
I want you, Niefer, and I need Bobby Fi because I don't belong living in your precious memory. Hashtag I'd walk 1,000 miles for you. Well, it's time for me to take out my little pink dress because I want to look at my Sunday best with Bobby Fi and Grant Niefer. All right, fine, I'll say it. I'm a furry. I go out every Friday night dressed as a unicorn because I truly believe we all have spirit animals. Still got 2 more. I had way too much free time today. I can relate to no song more than I'll Make a Man Out of You from the movie Mulan. Hashtag I feel your pain, Mulan. And then, yeah, biatch, I can paint with all the colors of the wind. You got a problem with that? You can take it up with John Smith.
I think that the Rickroll one has got to be the winner, right?
I think so.
All right.
So, yeah,
sounds good.
I'll
So
go
I
with that.
came up with that one first. So now I just wasted the next 30 minutes of my life.
They were good ones. They were good ones, though, man. They were all good. It was not a waste.
My general goal on these is to pick one that will be highly embarrassing, but that hopefully enough people will know it's a joke and then I lost a bet, which I think people are probably starting to figure out based on my weekly Tuesday tweet of ridiculousness. So, yeah, that's good. Hey, by the way, side story. So we're going, I'm flying out tomorrow for Christmas with my family. So Abby and I had our Christmas this morning, and I'm terribly difficult to buy for because there's nothing I actually need, and anything I do need, I go get. So, I think you guys know that I absolutely love animals. Grant, you know that because you've been to my apartment where we have 3 cats. So Abby donated to a no-kill animal shelter for me for one of my Christmas presents. And specifically, she got to pick a cat to donate to, and it was an orange cat named Simba. So that's
oh my gosh,
good memories from last week's podcast and my embarrassing tweets. So I've been supporting Simba all over the place lately. So yeah, now before we get to our bold polls for this week, looks like we're gonna end up at an hour and 10 minutes as we tend to always do. We're gonna look at some value guys, try to highlight, one guy per position. I kind of think this week might be a week to not even be as strict on how low we go. I mean, we don't really have a set price, but we kind of generally stay below 5K on running backs and wide receivers. But there's a lot of, like we were saying, loose pricing this week. You don't really need to pay up at running back. Even the expensive wide receivers are pretty cheap. $8,300 for Mike Evans against New Orleans, and then it goes down from there. So maybe we don't have to go under 5K unless you see somebody. But Grant, I'll start with you. Quarterback. You said there's a lot of affordable guys you like. Who would you say is the one that stands out to you the most right now?
RG3. Well, I don't know why we wouldn't do RG3.
Okay, outside of RG3, who's the one who stands out to you the most right now?
Oh gosh, I don't have much else.
You continue on with RG3. I just can't stand. I can't see that play paying off.
Oh, like it didn't last week when he had 20 points, or the week before when he had like 15 points at his value.
Did he really put up 20 points last week?
Yeah, 48 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, 196 passing yards.
Okay, continue on.
Sucker. Yeah, no, he has his best matchup of the year so far. He's faced 3 or 2 tougher defenses than he's going to be playing this week. San Diego gives up the 4th amount of points in the league. They're going to be coming from behind probably because San Diego's going to put up a clinic on that defense, but also turn the ball over multiple times, so give Cleveland great field position. He's rushing for touchdowns, has 1 and 2 straight games, and he's 5,100, and everyone just gets shivers of sadness every time they put him into the lineup, so he's going to be low owned.
Shivers of Sadness would be a good fantasy DFS name. Bobby, what about you at quarterback? Who's a cheap guy standing out to you?
Under the confines of going under 6K. I would say I really like Tyrod Taylor. I think he had a big game against the Dolphins earlier this week. I know you said we don't need to be strict about the pricing, but I do think that he's in a good spot. Earlier this year. I should probably have said this earlier, but I'm on a number of painkillers because I have an unfortunate stinging accident earlier today while I was swimming. So I'm a little bit slower than usual today.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you really don't want to hear about it or any specifics. I promise you that.
Just tell me, was it a bee stinging accident while swimming? Because
no. Think more. It was a jellyfish stinging, but it was not in a fun place. But anyway, yeah,
been there before.
It's nasty, so I'm a little bit loopy right now, but I do think that Tyrod Taylor is a really viable play this week at only 5,400. Miami is 22nd in the league against the quarterback position. Taylor put up 24 in the last matchup. I think he's in a good spot this week. I always like taking Tyrod. I think he's underdrafted for the most part because he does have that running ability, and you know how much I love running quarterbacks as well as everybody else in the DFS world who makes money. So I think Taylor's in a really good spot this week, and I think that he's probably my favorite one under 6K.
Yeah, I think that I'd have to say Tyrod Taylor as my favorite. I think one quick note on RG3 and Grant, you're definitely swinging me onto RG3 as being a better play than I thought. I will point out, I noticed this last week. I think San Diego is coming into last week. They were 29th in points allowed, but 17th in yards allowed. They've also given the ball away more than any team in football. So they do give a lot of short fields to their opponents via turnover, which is a large part of the reason they're the worst scoring defense. Along those lines, Cleveland doesn't force many turnovers. So there will be, I would guess, fewer short fields than normal for RG3 to work with and get points against San Diego. So I think
San Diego is second in the league in takeaways, but they have a -5 turnover differential.
Because they've given the ball away that many times.
Yep.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I'm going to say, I actually think, and I don't know that I'll go here, but I'm going to say Matt Moore because he looked genuinely good against who did they play this last week? The Jets.
The Jets.
Genuinely good. And I know the Jets have a worse pass defense than Buffalo, but I don't know that I'll end up on Matt Moore. I like Moore. I like Barkley. I think that you can go 5K and have a good quarterback this week. That's not to say that you have to, but I think that Moore's not a downgrade from Ryan Tannehill. He's honestly just not. And it's not like Savage where it's an upgrade from Osweiler, but he's not a downgrade. And I think that, if you think Buffalo can put up points, then you'd have to expect the Dolphins to open playbook a little bit. And you can also expect the Bills to try to take away the run game with the assumption that they want Matt Moore to be the guy to beat them. So I think Matt Moore is viable this week as well.
Fun fact on Aces, in cash and tournaments for the Thursday through Monday slate, I used almost exclusively Matt Moore RG3 stacks.
This last week?
Yep.
That's pretty beautiful.
Of course you did. You only ever use the minimum quarterbacks over there anyway. Yeah, I would give you credit for being genius, but that's what you do every week. So hard for me to give you too much credit.
I'm a genius every week, so thank you for the credit.
Oh, well done. Well played, sir.
All right, so moving on to the running back position. I don't think we have to go below 5K. I think Crowell is potentially viable, although they always stop giving him the ball once they get behind. Dion Lewis and James White are viable, but you never know which guy is going to get the work. Mark Ingram and Tim Hightower are still splitting the workload. Tampa can be attacked on the ground, but as far as actual favorite guys, say under 6K, if we all say, okay, we like Jordan Howard, I believe Jordan Howard is just over 6K. So Grant, what about if we go below 6K? Who's your favorite guy below 6K?
All my favorite ones are below 4,300.
Let's hear it then.
Oh man, Forsett is going to go ham at 3,600 this week. I love him. He can get targets out of the backfield. He can get catches. And at 3,600, even if he ends up with 15, that's going to be more than pay off his value. And then if you want four other guys, Yeldon, McKinnon, Dixon, and Crowell. Dixon's going to have the same game script that he had 2 weeks ago when they had to come from behind a bit going against Pittsburgh on the road. He's going to get a ton of catches out of the backfield. Boom!
Well, we did veer away from the main slate on both of your favorite ones.
Well, I gave you 5, so
is that a
you have
boom
3
back
options
at
now.
you or no?
Huh? Did you boom
I think
me?
so.
You
I
boomed
think
me.
so. I think so. I was like, I'm trying to find these plays. I'm like, they're not even on here. I'm only looking at the main slate, so I didn't notice any of those guys.
But I do like the Yeldon call. I mean, we talked about Yeldon last week. Even with Chris Ivory coming back, he still got a lot of pass game work, and the way you beat Tennessee is passing against him. And along those lines, I honestly don't mind Bortles this week. Gus Bradley's out. We got 2 weeks left. Not anything's really going to change on this Jaguars team, but I just think, the only way to attack Tennessee is through the air, and it is interesting. We could get some nice garbage time points from Bortles this week, where third and fourth quarter he comes alive and gives you 20 points at 5K.
You punched me in the D for saying RG3, and then you mentioned Bortles.
Yeah, Bortles averages like 20 fantasy points a game. I mean, it's all in garbage time, but RG3 has no touchdown passes. He can't complete more than 45% of his passes. So
He can against San Diego. Anyone can.
All right, Bobby, who do you like at running back? Who's standing out to you the most under 6K?
Grant, there he goes again. He's ripping his favorite defense as usual. I don't understand this guy. He cracks me up. My favorite one under 6K is by far and away. First of all, I think there's like 6 great plays under 6K. I think Ajayi is by far my favorite play, partly because I think people might be off of him more just because he's been so down lately. And he ran for only 214 yards last time they played Buffalo. It's a great matchup. Buffalo's given up some of the biggest games this year. I think they're going to force feed him the ball. I think he's going to have no trouble with that D, and I think that he'll have another one of his big games and won't let me down like he has, I guess, 3 of the last 4 weeks, I guess. I'm a big fan of Ajayi this week. He'd be my favorite. I know I'm supposed to just name one, but Doug Martin would be the other guy I would go to.
Nice. I like Bilal Powell. He's not he's not actually under 6K. He is 6K, but I like Bilal Powell if we get clarity on the Forte situation. I don't know why the coaching staff would give Forte a huge amount of work, but since this is a lost season and Forte won't necessarily be there next year, but whatever. But I will, absent information there, I'm going to go with Ty Montgomery because I really do think that, he has a good 15-point floor at 5,900, and I like his pass game involvement, pass catching skills. I mean, this guy, this is basically a David Johnson type situation in that David Johnson was a wide receiver in college. They converted him to running back. I don't know if it was his last year in college or if the Cardinals did it, but anyhow, but you basically put a pass catcher in the backfield. The upside's pretty enormous, and Montgomery's probably not a David Johnson athlete, but he is a really good athlete. So I think this could be one of those things where, if we had another several weeks left in the season and Montgomery stayed in the same role, his price could be up around 7,500 later in the season. So I still think he's underpriced at 59. I don't know that he's a must play, but I think he's underpriced where he is. So I like him. Wide receiver. If we're going, not that we're necessarily going to, but with the assumption that we might be, paying up at a couple wide receiver spots, you'll probably have to save at another spot. So, Bobby, one wide receiver, it doesn't have to be under 5K, but just a lower priced guy that you're comfortable saving with this week, outside of the obvious guys from Houston.
That takes away one of them I was going to say. I like Willie Snead a lot this week at 5,500. Like we mentioned earlier, Tampa Bay does have their most trouble over the middle. I love Breeze and Snead at home, especially on the PPR side like DraftKings. I think that he's the best play in that range to me, other than I'm not supposed to mention him, so I just sort of broke that rule. He's sort of my favorite one. I don't really know how much exposure I'll have to anybody else. I think that Watkins can be sneaky just because what his upside is. So I actually think that he's worth a shot in tournaments. And I think that you could say the same thing about Robbie Anderson and Travis Benjamin, that they're worth shots. Robbie Anderson is getting a lot of work he had, it's weird, he had a couple plays. He had 16, 17, and 18 points in his last three games out. And if they're going to be throwing the ball, 40 times against the Patriots, assuming they're down big, he's going to be the one who gets a a huge portion of that workload. So I actually think Anderson's a good play, even if everybody's healthy on the Jets. I think he would be my guy also. I think there's a lot of good options in the mid range.
Yeah, I think if Petty's playing, he's looking to Robbie Anderson, so I like that call as well. Grant, what about you at wide receiver?
So I really like Seth Roberts, but I won't say him because I'll just say him every week. Corey Coleman. So Pryor's going to be going up against Hayward, and he's going to have a tough matchup. I think that slings a little bit of the targets over to Coleman. He had 10 targets 2 weeks ago in RG3's first game back. Last week was kind of a weird game, but this week should be more passing, and it should be more action for Coleman. He's 3,900. John Brown also, does he come out of the slot? I haven't even looked into this. I can't even remember.
No, he's on the outside.
So Nelson in the slot?
No, it's usually Fitzgerald is like 70%, 80% in the slot.
Wow, I completely blanked there. I completely forgot he played on the team. All right, never mind then.
But I think I think Carson Palmer we talked about it. Has he finally realized the limitations of his arm? In the last couple of weeks, it looked like it. And he came out and fed 11 targets to J.J. Nelson this last week. And sure, he only completed 5 of them because he can't throw outside the numbers. But if he's going to get double-digit looks, I mean, like J.J. Nelson is interesting even against Seattle, I think.
How many do you think John Brown had?
I don't know. How many targets did John Brown have?
I realized that there are 2 John Browns in the league, so my spreadsheet actually has him at 12, which cannot be right. He had 6
targets.
So.
Yeah, and and John. The weird thing about Brown is they're trying to limit him to like 20 snaps or whatever because of the sickle cell thing. So, who knows what's going on there? But anybody else standing out to you?
So if Fitzpatrick plays instead of Petty, then I think Anua at 4K is a decent play.
I like that one too. I'm going to go ahead and say Cameron Meredith. I know we talked about him earlier, but I just think it's a tremendous spot, and 4,700 is really cheap. And I honestly, this is a week where I don't mind Allen Robinson as much. We saw him completely bomb last week, but against Tennessee, and maybe Allen Robinson's just checked out. Maybe he's done even trying, but against a Tennessee defense that you have to beat through the air, I do think that this is a week you could go back to Allen Robinson. One last guy, like LaFell, just kills me because I rostered him 2 weeks ago when he got 6 targets and only hauled in 3 for 22 yards, which were sandwiched between a pair of 90-yard games. But yeah, if AJ Green is out, I think LaFell is a viable option again as well. Moving on to tight end, Grant, I'm going to go back to you. Who are you seeing at tight end that you like for savings? Again, there's always savings here, but who's one guy who stands out to you above others?
I mean, I've already said Jermaine Gresham every single week since I got on that train way before you guys. Rubbing your noses in it. Hunter Henry, he's had 7 touchdowns on the year. I think they've given up on giving Gates a touchdown record, and they seem to really like Hunter Henry and getting him ready for next year, where he could be an all-pro next year, realistically. He's a great tight end, and he's still going to get a decent amount of targets, and he could end up with a touchdown or even 2 in this game. So going up against that Cleveland defense is the worst in the league against tight end. I like Hunter Henry a lot.
I like that call. Bobby, what about you at tight end?
I like Doyle. I think that Oakland has trouble over the middle. They've had trouble with tight ends as long as I've been playing DFS 4. Doyle, I think, is in a good spot. He sort of has become a little bit more of the preferred target for Luck. I think that you could make an argument for Jared Cook, especially coming off the week he just had, but it's always hard with the Green Bay team. And I don't really still love taking players against Minnesota, even though last week that definitely seemed to be a good way to go. But if there's one other guy, actually 2 other guys I'm just going to mention, I think Charles Clay and Ryan Griffin are in pretty good spots. I think if you paired if you're going to use a Clay Taylor stack or something like that would make sense. And Ryan Griffin had, what did he have? 8 targets, 8 catches last week and 85 yards. And he's 3,300 against Cincinnati, and who struggles 30th in the league against tight ends. They really struggle over the middle. So all those guys are viable. There's a lot of good cheap options at tight end this week. Definitely somewhere I'm paying down.
Yeah, I'm not that you wish for anybody to have a tough time recovering from a concussion, but I won't mind it if Fedorowicz is out again this week, because I do love the Ryan Griffin call. I used Ladarius Green against Cincinnati this last week. I like attacking that defense with tight ends. Charles Clay was the guy I was going to mention. And feel like sometimes you get hurt by knowing too much information, because if I, knew less than last week, I would have been like, oh yeah, Charles Clay is 2,800 and he had a good game last week. But how bad Clay has been, and really the biggest problem for Clay is he's been open. Beat writers have talked about this for the Bills. Clay's open a lot, and Tyrod Taylor just doesn't look to him. That's just not a place where Tyrod Taylor looks. And so I kind of thought, I actually had several teams that had 2,800 left over for the tight end spot, and kept seeing Clay and thinking, oh, that'd be an interesting play. And then I was like, no, that's dumb. Let's rework things and make this a better team. Clay goes out and puts up another 20 points, but he does seem to be getting more involved. He's a much better tight end than how Buffalo has used him. He's playing his old team in Miami, so I don't think it's a bad spot to use Clay this week. Which brings us to our bold calls, and I'm actually going to go first and set the table here because I have one I actually like this week, and that is I'm going to say Cameron Meredith is going to score at least 22 points this week at 4,700. And if you say that's not all that bold, then that would mean that you think Cameron Meredith is a must play, because that's almost 5x salary. So
that's plenty bold.
I'm gonna say 22 points for Cameron Meredith, and let's see what you guys come up with. Which one of you wants to go next?
Doesn't matter. I'm not going to pick a guy that he's going to pick. So go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, we're definitely not picking the same guy anyway.
All right.
Bet on Todd Gurley will be a top 5 running back this week.
Okay, point per dollar or just raw points?
I mean total points. Actually, I'll say point per dollar because it works a little more in my favor.
Yeah.
So I don't want to have to do any more of those tweets. So I'm definitely I think I'm just gonna go PPD here. That's where I'm at.
All right, 6,500.
Gurley's great matchup. Love it. Go ahead.
I got to bring this up. So at the beginning of the season, I tweeted to say that one of the season-long strategies I really liked was drafting Todd Gurley with your first-round pick and then trading him after he destroyed the 49ers in week 1. And so that's whatever. People would have forgotten about it, except that Evan Silva retweeted that, and he has 15 times as many followers as I have. And so I got a bunch of new followers through that who came to me through that tweet. And then after Todd Gurley just collapsed week 1 against San Francisco, I endured an entire week of people who had just started following me, telling me what an idiot I was. So I have great resentment toward the Todd Gurley against San Francisco matchup. But Grant, what do you have to go along with our Todd Gurley and Cam Meredith?
Well, if I were smart, I'd probably go with something like a quarterback that'll give me safety, or go with LaFell, who's guaranteed to get targets and probably outscore you other guys. But I'm going Corey Coleman because I am invincible, and there's nothing that you can do to shame me anyways.
That's fair. That's the biggest part about this tweets and consequences is anything that you send us to post is something you would post anyway. So it's really difficult. It's enormously difficult to embarrass Grant.
Well, you have got me with 3 of the worst ones that I could have thought of. All
the
3
vegan
of them
one and then the broken heart one.
The vegan one, the broken heart one, and the Hillary one, which I'm all vehemently against.
The broken heart one was great because that one guy who commented back to you and was like, "Keep your head up, man."
Hey,
I play you on Aces all the time, buddy. Keep your head up. You'll get through this.
And then the
why do you
vegan
make
one.
it political, by the way? Why does Grant have to make it political at the end, man? Why we have to go Hillary bashing at these times? It's ridiculous.
That's
ridiculous.
The world we live in.
It's a painful time for some of us. A painful time for some of us. Come on.
I was at that point Hillary was going to win, and I was not happy about that. I'm not happy about Trump winning it all, but I'm just an unhappy person, I guess.
That was one of my biggest losing nights. I actually bet a lot on her to win. I kept betting more and more and more as the night was wearing on election night. So that was one of my biggest losses.
Man. Like as the odds kept shortening.
And yeah, it was in Michigan at the time too. So I was like, swing state. Oh, they haven't counted they haven't counted the small, the diverse areas, the areas that go more liberal. So I really thought that was going to turn around. So I'm just leaving it. I'm gonna leave the political talk I'm finishing it. That's it. That's all
Hey,
I
did
got
you
for right
guys,
now because I don't want to
along
get
those
too
lines,
fired up.
without getting into opinions, did you guys see about Bales? I think he made like 50 grand off of betting on Trump to win.
Oh man, that's nice.
It was somebody gave him 100-to-1 odds, and so he plopped down $500, or maybe he plopped down $1,000, and it was, I don't know who it was that he knows, but somebody that he knows who has a lot of money, and I might have the numbers wrong, but anyhow, it was like back during the primaries, like Republican primaries. And basically, Bales said he didn't think that Trump would win, but didn't think that his odds were as long as what the dude was giving him. So anyhow,
Wow.
and then he ended up, I think after Trump won the nomination, they let the guy buy out of the bet and took half or something like that. But yeah, so picked up a large chunk of money off of betting on Trump. So yeah, so that had nothing to do with this week in football. And Bobby and Grant hanging out chatting.
So in football news, the Denver Broncos jerseys look just like Trump's skin.
Bobby, final thoughts before we get out of here?
Try not to be on painkillers when you do these shows. You might be a little sharper. That's a note to self.
I actually wouldn't have known if you hadn't said anything because I thought you were plenty sharp. So there you go. There's my level of awareness.
At least I got you, JM. I appreciate that.
Grant, final thoughts?
If you want to be sharp on the show, be on the best painkiller of all, alcohol. And also when you're around your family, be on alcohol too, because they're not bearable to be with. I love my family and I can't stand being around them.
That is a great holiday thought from your friend Grant Neefer. Listeners, thanks for hanging out. It's fun. We have 1 week left, sadly. Next week, we will see you back here, same time, same place. And we will see you at the top of the leaderboards this weekend.
See ya.